Well, good morning. For those of you who just got the notification, we are going live. We're going to give it a couple of minutes, give everyone a chance to grab some coffee, grab a water, get settled in for this very exciting sort of lunch and learn style webinar that will be starting here in about 2 minutes. And for those of you who are joining us, go ahead and drop in the comments where you are logging in from. I know we have quite a few registrants who are all over the globe. We would love to see all the different countries represented. So let us know in the comments where you are logging in from. And we'll be starting in just another minute here. We have Jackie from New York. Thank you for letting us know, Jackie. So we've got the East Coast represented. Anyone else want to drop in where they're logging in from? We would love to see. And we're going to be getting our lovely faces on screen here in just another minute or so, just giving everyone a chance to get settled as they just got the notification. We are going live. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to pause that calming hold music there. And so we are live. Welcome to everybody that is joining us this morning. And actually, I'm having trouble with some of our sound. I'm Victoria with Bridgeline. We have Landon, Carl, and then Josh. I cannot seem to unmute you. So at some point, we may need to do a quick reset. Oh, there we go. All right. So now we are all here. Everyone can hear our voices. So I'm going to just quickly pass it over to you folks. If you want to just go ahead and we'll go in order of everyone that's on the screen. So starting with Carl, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what company you're with? And then we'll just jump right into it.
All right. Before I do that, I have to say I love that on hold music. Very, very sultry. And, goes well with your voice. I know you're not feeling well. You're under the weather a little bit, so appreciate Victoria you hosting here today, given the fact that you're under the weather. But so I'm Carl Prizzi. Many of you may know me. I head up our revenue team here at Bridgeline. So that includes our direct sales team, our customer success teams. As many of you know, we have multiple products that we bring to the table. We have our Bridgeline Unbound product for web content management, e-commerce. We have our Hawk Search product for site search, WooRank for SEO optimization. So we have a lot of great products in our portfolio. So I appreciate you joining today and to learn more about a new and exciting partnership that we have with accessiBe that we want to bring to you all. So I'll hand it off to Landon and Josh to give a quick intro from there.
Thank you, Carl and Victoria. I know you're not up on the screen anymore, but thank you for bringing us to this today. And just a little bit about me, everyone. My name is Josh Basile, and I'm the Community Relations Manager at accessiBe. My life was flipped upside down about 19 years ago as a teenager. I was in waist-high water in the ocean. A wave picked me up, threw me over my boogie board, and slammed me on my head. And that day, I shattered my neck. I'm now paralyzed below my shoulders. I'm a C4-5 quad, quadriplegic, and when I was first in the hospital, I lost my voice with a ventilator that was keeping me alive. And when I finally did regain my voice 5 weeks later, that's when I became an advocate for life and making sure that every word counts from that moment on. Went back to school, went to law school. I'm now a practicing attorney and a proud member of the accessiBe team to change how accessibility looks around the world, and especially in the digital world. So thank you for having me here today. And I'll pass it on to Landon.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you, Carl and Victoria, for having us here today. My name is Landon Shefts. I am on our partner success team. So I work very closely with the Bridgeline team, with a number of products that they have and the clients that they support as well. And Victoria, like Carl said, your voice with the calming music, I thought you're about to play a smooth jazz song. So sorry, no Robin Thicke today, just us, but great to meet everybody.
Very good. So if we can advance to the next slide here. Yes, I just wanted to just kick off with, I guess before we jump in, I wanted to just share a quick personal story on how accessibility hits home for me. My cousin Rosie, growing up, she was born hearing impaired, and she uses sign language to communicate. And I was always fascinated with her ability to overcome her disability over the years, and that was partly due to leveraging technology. I remember years ago when we were younger, my aunt got her an assisted listening device for, back then, just the old analog phones with the rotary dial and all that. But it was able to transcribe her voice to text, and she would communicate over the phone by typing into that device. And it had a small black and green screen of letters as she typed. So whenever we went over there, we would always be playing with it with her and all that. So it's it's just fascinating over the past, I think it was like 35, 40 years ago, just how technology has advanced. And I'm glad that it continues to evolve to ensure the inclusivity for her, not only her, but also countless others with disabilities. So I'm very excited to be having this webinar here today and to be forming the partnership with accessiBe. First met the accessiBe folks back in New York City in September at a Locology conference. This is last year. I immediately thought of my cousin Rosie at the time, and met the co-founder Deckel, met Landon there, had a great time. We hit it off at the networking after party of the conference. And ultimately from there, we worked up formalizing a partnership. We launched the partnership in May, and we've gradually been talking to some customers, but now we want to announce it to our complete customer base. And that's what today is all about. So really bringing it to the masses and talking about the innovative solutions that they provide and really the value of their solution. Since then, we met Josh Basile. We had an internal kickoff with the team, and Josh really shared his inspiring story. So I'm very honored for him to be on the webinar with us today to really share his story and for you all to understand the importance of accessibility. Really, at the end of the day, it is important for all of our customers to be ADA accessible. And up until this point, many of you may have been working with us on a manual audit and some development services to help you achieve ADA compliance. But we're excited today to be able to provide this innovative solution to all of our customers across the product suite. We have it integrated into our products as incremental license fee. So it's really a turnkey implementation. So we can get up and running very quickly. And there's a ton of benefits that come with the product. And I'll let Landon and Josh speak to a lot of the details here. But without stealing too much of their thunder, just some quick touch points here. Social responsibility, providing equal access to everyone, expanding your audience and having a broader reach there. And along with that comes a lot of ancillary benefits around SEO, driving more traffic to your site. The search engines rank sites that are accessible higher in search results, if they have alt tags and things of that nature. So we'll get into a lot of those intimate details today. I think probably one of the big number ones from a business standpoint is reducing that risk of legal consequences. And at the end of the day, just inclusivity makes for a better business and a better user experience overall. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to these guys, both Josh and Landon, to provide us with more information on the powerful solution of accessiBe. So again, very excited for this webinar. Any questions, feel free to type into the comments there. At the end, we'll have a little recap and you can reach out to us for any questions you may have. All right, so Josh and Landon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carl. And so kind of the best place to start is kind of at a glance, the big picture. When it comes to disability, it truly is not a matter of if, but when disability is going to impact whether you in your own personal life, someone you love, a coworker, or you're in a business where you're helping people with disabilities, or you have an employee. And so if you look at the numbers, 26% of adult Americans have some form of disability. That's a big number. We're talking about 60 million plus people. But then when you talk about the internet, being millions and millions of websites, yet only 3% of websites meet web accessibility guidelines, which is not a good statistic. We can do better, and the way that we do better is raising awareness. And the fact is that only around 25% of business owners can accurately define web accessibility, and that's why we're having these conversations today. These are healthy conversations of what web accessibility is, why it matters, what the big picture is of bringing in inclusivity into your brand, having brand loyalty come back with more customers that have better experiences, and just really the smart business opportunity of opening your doors to all people rather than closing them right on the homepage. So we're gonna now jump to the next slide and kind of give you a little bit more understanding of what web accessibility is. So when you go to a website with a disability, you end up finding lots of barriers a lot of the times on an inaccessible website, where you have your menu, and if you're trying to go through the menu, there's a drop-down menu, but you can't access it, or there's a link and you can't click it, or there's a search bar and you can't type with your voice to be able to put in your search in. Or I've even been on a person's page where I'm trying to do the contact us, or even trying to put in my credit card information. And it wouldn't let me, pay and check out. And I was stuck, and I had to wait until somebody came home, a friend or a family member, to help me. Which it's really having barriers on the website where all you really want to do is experience it just like everyone else. And that's where web accessibility standards and rules, behaviors, and guidelines have come in to help web developers or website owners understand what the kind of how to make your website operate safely and effectively for people with disabilities. And that's where you get to that compliance level. Next slide. So why web accessibility matters. No business owner wakes up and saying, what, we want to block people with disabilities from being our clients. No, nobody does that. There's just a lack of awareness, lack of understanding of how to make their website accessible, how to make it compliant, and what are the best practices, how do we do it? So it's so much about web accessibility is just opening that door to, we talked about the 26% of adult Americans, but we're really talking about 15% of the world is living with some disability. And 75% of Americans with disabilities report using the internet every day. The internet is our gateway, our portal to the outside world. Can you imagine not having the internet for a day or a week or a month? Making your website not accessible. Those people with disabilities are blocked from being able to benefit from everything that you have to offer and being a part of your business journey. And lastly, there's just so much money within the disability community. We're talking about billions of dollars just with people and buying power of people with disabilities. But then when you integrate the family members, the friends, and the community behind people with disabilities, we're talking about trillions. And it's, as an advocate as a person with disability, I like to share my good experiences and my bad experiences. And you don't want to hear, the family members and friends don't want to hear about the bad experiences. I'm going to your brand's website and not being able to experience it. And it's just smart business to make accessibility a part of your journey and part of your DNA, and to do it now rather than later. Next slide. So now I'm going to do a quick demo and show you what web accessibility looks like for me. All right. So this right here is a website. It's a typical kind of e-commerce website. You're on it. And if I'm on this site, and I like to use my keyboard. So I have an on-screen keyboard here that I tab through. So if you look at the top left of the screen, you'll see I'm tabbing through the site, and then it gets to the search bar. It goes to the menu, and living room is an actual drop-down menu. But when I tab on it, it skips right over it because this website doesn't have accessibility built into its code. And then there's all these things that you can do shortcuts with keys. So H is supposed to jump from header to header. M goes to menu. B goes to buttons. And these are my shortcuts to be able to go around the site But unfortunately, the web accessibility is not there. So the way to get around that is basically with accessiBe, you'll find access widgets that you're able to get integrated into your site, in no time. It's a really simple, seamless process. And then you'll see this icon that comes up. And this icon ends up allowing you to create accessibility into your site and integrate it. So the access widget, the one I like to use the most, is the keyboard navigation. So once that's activated, and you're on the site this time, you're able to then now see the drop-down menu. I'm able to explore the website from different headers, different buttons. I'm able to go to the menus, and it's a really fun way, an easier way to make every click matter for me. So let's also explore some of the other options. Let's say you're a person with a disability. We're talking, there's millions of people with disabilities. Let's say you're prone to seizures. The seizure safe profile, if you look on the bottom right of the screen, it's showing a GIF of blinking lights. This one will stop everything that's blinking and make it so that everything that tones down the colors, stops any movements, and creates a safe profile for anyone with epilepsy. If you have a vision impairment, it makes everything big, bold, and it makes everything easier to see, bigger text. ADHD profile gives you the ability to have a focus bar where you're able to just to see what you want to see and kind of dims down everything else. Cognitive disabilities, this allows you to know the different hyperlinks, what you click on, what you need to read, and it makes it easier to navigate a site. And then with the keyboard navigation, this not only works both for your keyboard, but also for blind users with screen readers. And it allows your images to have alt text, if none are there, to be able to describe what that image is. Otherwise, the image comes up blank. And it's just a powerful, powerful tool. And then if you go on, you scroll down below, you have so many other adjustments that you can make. So these are the content adjustments where you can increase the size, you can highlight titles, you can adjust the alignment of text, you can create color adjustments, you can go to the dark contrast, the high saturation, you can change basically every color of text, titles, background colors. It's absolutely amazing. And then orientation adjustments, you can put it into read mode, so you're just reading. You can mute sounds if you don't want to hear the music in the background or a video that's playing. You can hide images. You have basically all of these options to be able to explore the website based on how you want to see it. So much of this is giving you, at least for me, it gives me new abilities. It's almost like a superpower that I get when I get to explore a website. And it gives me power and choice to have a better, safer experience. And for any person that comes to your site, giving them that choice, no matter what their abilities are, it's an incredible experience that we now have in today's world to improve your website and to bring it to the next level. And to basically the Access widget works for you and is part of your team, part of your journey. So I can't say enough about it, what it does for my life and what it does for so many other people with disabilities, raising awareness about this, letting you know about it, letting your community know about it. We got to spread the word. We got to make the world more accessible. So thank you. And I'm going to pass it along over to Landon now.
Josh, real quick, I think there's also some sort of audio prompt that kicks in, right? If I recall, is that for
Yes.
Visual impaired?
Yep, there's an audio prompt letting them know that it's there, that they can have it there. And then it could be, it's basically as soon as you start tabbing with your keyboard, it recognizes it. Or if you have a screen reader, it's able to prompt you that it's there to be able to turn it on.
Nice. And I believe you guys also have some AI built in to understand and fill the gaps where there's a website that has images that have text embedded in it. There's certain features that kick in there.
So that's the when I first showed you the website, that's basically a website that's not accessible. But then once you integrate the access widget onto the site, it finds all of those holes where accessibility was lacking, and it fills those in. And it scans the website every 24 hours to find where those holes are and to fill it in. So once you activate the access widget and turn it on, all of a sudden you have all these accessibility barriers broken down for people. And it's amazing how that technology is. And it's, you can't flip a switch with accessibility and think the job's done. It's a job that has to continuously happen every single day. Using artificial intelligence to be a part of your team and make that possible every 24 hours. It's the future, and the future's now. And being a part of it and integrating into your site, it's going to take it to the next level for people with disabilities.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Landon, I know you're going to speak to some of the business impacts, right? The benefits from a business standpoint. I know we talked a little bit about the legal ramifications and all that, but I think you have a few slides to share as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also be covering a little bit about what you've just asked about regarding the AI.
Awesome. Okay.
But to Josh's point, the AI that you've probably seen in some of the demos I've provided to some of your clients in terms of, for how this is going to work with blind users, it's actually the same AI that's kicking into place when Josh was navigating the site using his keyboard. So it all is sort of tied hand in hand there. But I will go ahead and go to, why this is important for your business and a little bit more about the solution, the market, the legal landscape, everything else that Carl mentioned earlier. So the legal aspects of web accessibility. And moving on from here, the main litigation or the main law that we're really talking about here is called the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what happened is that in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law, predating the internet. This was more about physical spaces. But then a major change happened where this started applying to websites. The Department of Justice released guidelines on web accessibility. That's something that Josh was referring to earlier. And it affirmed that, websites are considered places of public accommodation, and therefore they must also comply with the ADA, or, they are vulnerable to litigation, lawsuits, demand letters, all of these different things that are out there. So the law does require accessibility, and these regulations are being enforced in some cases by, the government itself, in other cases by people who want equal access to the internet and simply don't have it. And it's a true case of discrimination. There's also some lawyers who may have found, a system of, we know if we could send out demand letters in mass, some are going to sort of stick, right? So what we've seen is that in 2022, and really it's been every year that I've been here, the amount of lawsuits and demand letters have had significant increases. The important thing to note is that most of these, as you can see, the percentage we have is 97% of these cases are settled before going to trial. That is, of course, a big part of, sort of the strategy of, how can we, as, a legal team who's sending these out in mass, maybe make some money pretty quickly. It has created this almost friction that isn't necessary between people who do truly want equal access to the internet and business owners who, feel like they're almost being targeted, right? And that's something that we want to bridge, because like Carl mentioned earlier, most business owners aren't waking up and saying, I don't want my site to be accessible. It's simply because they didn't have the tools or resources to do it in the past, or were just a bit unaware of the options of how to make a site accessible in the past. So, if you do ever get to the litigation stage of things, talking a little bit about the average cost of demand letters under the ADA for small businesses Of course, these numbers do rise. The more money you make, the more traffic you're getting on your site. But we're usually talking about, all in all for a small business, about $40,000 if you're not proactive and getting ahead of the web accessibility curve. So, that is attorney's fees. That's the cost to actually make your site accessible. And of course, the actual settlement itself. So, the reason that we're doing all of these numbers here as opposed to just the settlement is because of the fact that you can't just sort of pay and walk away. It is something where you are asked to then go ahead and make your site accessible. Another thing that we have noticed are that sites that have been hit with a demand letter or lawsuit tend to get hit with a demand letter or lawsuit again down the line. I've definitely had some conversations with larger companies, at least, where they've settled maybe 4 or 5 times outside of court, and it's like, all right, let's do some major work to your website. Let's make sure you're accessible. Let's avoid the situation moving forward and make a better user experience for your clients. And what actually makes a website compliant? I know, especially if you're not developers out there, it could all sound a little complicated and complex, but the ADA, the law that we were referring to earlier, and other laws across different countries, laws within Canada, laws within the state for public entities, for example, they all fall back to something called the WCAG. No need to remember the acronyms here, but it's the guidebook that Josh was referring to earlier that basically just states this is how a website should look, interact, feel for a person with a disability or any user who uses an assistive technology. What can make a website WCAG, again, the Web Content Accessibility Guideline, compliant? So blind users or even low vision users who have a screen reader downloaded into their operating system are having the content of a site read out to them. That's where our AI that Carl was referring to will actually kick in, fill in some of the blanks so that blind users are getting as much context as possible. Keyboard navigation compatible for people with mobility disabilities. This is what Josh was referring to earlier with tabbing through a site and not having access to be able to quickly navigate, not having access to some of the drop-down menus, not having access to input your credit card, which is, not just a bad user experience, but actual money coming out of that company's, it's coming out of their revenue. The UI design compatible for people with minor visual disabilities. My mom's old school. She makes a new Instagram every time she wants to post a picture, but she also, when she uses her Mac, does Command plus like 35 times every time that she wants to go on a website. That is sort of the old school way, when now there are options out there, when you have a site that has the access widget on there, to turn on a vision impaired profile, right? And now it's going to make the colors brighter or more saturated. It's going to scale up the content. And overall, it's going to make it a much easier browser experience for somebody who may be older, have low vision, or whatever the case may be. The site also needs to be safe for people with epilepsy or anybody who's prone to photosensitive seizures, and then have comprehensible content for people with cognitive and learning disabilities. One example of this is that within the Access widget, we have a built-in dictionary. An example we always use is if you come across a website that includes a term like binge watching, you can actually look that up right there and get a quick definition, right? So just letting people know the context of everything on the site and making it a pleasurable user experience. Couple of examples here. Alt text, this is going to be most important for anybody who's using a screen reader. Again, a blind user who is either using one that's downloaded to their operating system or is using one that's built in within their operating system. This is describing what is happening within an image, including the text and including, the object or objects within the image itself. So this is something where if a website is inaccessible, it may just skip over that image completely. If you are selling something online or you have important information that's sort of embedded, the text is embedded within that image, you may be missing out on a major call to action to a large community simply because they didn't know the context of what was happening on that image itself. With Access Widget, we are going to actually go ahead with our AI, our text recognition, as well as our character recognition, image recognition, and explain what's happening within that image and fill in that void. So a blind user will now have that additional context. Another important thing, and this is more on the front end, as you saw with the vision impaired profile or the wide number of individual adjustments that you're able to make, but color contrast. This is one of the most common errors you're going to receive if you were to run a test on your website. And, we do understand that sometimes you want to stick with your branding and this great design that you've created and not have to think about, every single aspect of, all right, does the blue not look great on the yellow or whatever the case may be? But this is something that can make it very difficult for somebody with low vision to actually navigate the site and be able to read all of the text that's there. Same with text resizing and fonts, making sure that we're using fonts and, readable text sizes for people who may have low vision. All of these are covered within the Access widget by either making individual adjustments or using the vision impaired profile. So what are the business benefits of having an accessible website? I know Carl hinted at them earlier, but SEO and user experience optimization, tax credit eligibility, and third of all, brand inclusion. But I do think that this goes very much so hand in hand with social awareness, social responsibility, and DEI promotions that any company may be having. So first, discussing SEO and UX optimization. An accessible website can mean a better performing website. Before we even dive into the SEO itself, one important thing is, if you are spending money on a website, which is, how you're marketing your business, and you're creating a funnel of first getting users to the site, having users then become interested in products, adding things to carts, purchasing, or, if it's just giving you a call, making an appointment, whatever the case may be. If a website is inaccessible, you may be automatically losing out on clients that have disabilities simply because the site's inaccessible, right? So that is something that is very important and also does play a role in SEO if you're going to have a bounce rate, especially, very quickly because the site's inaccessible. Over 800 websites were assessed before and after becoming accessible. This was a study done by SEMrush and accessibilitychecker.org. We saw a 12% increase in overall traffic. 73, let's call it 73 and a half of websites had an increase in organic traffic, which, leads us to believe the SEO is really playing a role here. And 50% of organic traffic of websites increased up to 50%. So again, just from this sort of ROI standpoint, by creating the best possible user experience, you are being rewarded in a way other than just by making your clients happy, but by turning it into actual new leads, new clients, new revenue. And accessibility makes the user experience better for everyone and improves SEO. So 75% of people form their opinion on websites based on aesthetics. Nobody likes to go and look at an ugly website. And the number one people dislike websites if they're claiming that they're cluttered or overwhelming. This is a great way to sort of simplify things. It's a great way for each individual user that's visiting the site to make the user experience based on their ability unique to them, right? So I could go in and just change the font size, and maybe that is easier for me, where somebody really needs the color contrast or to change title colors due to color blindness, right? And it allows each individual user that ability based off of their ability or disability there. And then improper titles, text, layout, and missing metadata equals poor SEO, which of course is lower Google ranking and less traffic. Tax credit eligibility. Not going to go into a ton of detail here. you probably don't want to take your tax advice from myself personally. But that being said, we do have materials straight from the IRS as well that discuss how you can receive a tax credit based off of the money that you've put in to web accessibility. So of course, speak with your accountant, look at some of the materials that we have. Those are both from the IRS and on our website, linking out to the IRS website. But it is a great advantage and something that we recommend everybody who's making a true effort for web accessibility to take advantage of course. So the tax breakdown, again, not going to go into too much detail, but the credit covers about 50% of eligible accessibility related expenditures made during the previous tax year. There is, some limitations to it regarding, how many employees you have, how much revenue you're bringing in, as well as how much money you can actually receive. And the form that we were referring to earlier was Form 8826 on the IRS government website. Again, another disclaimer here. Before you sign off and send in your comprehensive return files, please consult with a CPA or tax professional. And the future is inclusive. Josh said it perfectly. The future is now. So, really at this point, just as some personal experience, I worked at Wix for many years. And this was, about 6 years ago now. And, one of the number one questions that I would receive, I was on the agency side there as well, was how can we make the site more accessible? And, I know they specifically did some work to allow people to easily add alt tags, things like that. There's so much more that goes into making an actual website inclusive and accessible. And again, this was 6 years ago. A lot of things have changed since then. And I think that the need for this has only become stronger. And Gen Z consumers care most about social issues like inclusion. I'm not Gen Z, but I certainly have, cousins who are, and I know that they are shopping online a lot. Everything they do is online. So your brand value matters. 76% of Gen Zs feel that companies should embrace diversity and inclusion practices. 94% of Gen Zs would buy from a company that demonstrates corporate social responsibility, and 84% would give that company the benefit of the doubt in the event of a crisis. So this is more so referring to the PR standpoint of, we are taking real tangible steps towards making our website and our company more inclusive and really caring about the social responsibility and awareness. And 2 out of 3 Americans say their social values now shape their shopping choices. This was done by AMA.org and McKinsey & Co. Sorry.
Landon, you could have fooled me. You look like you're a Gen Zer. You got the baby face still.
Thank you. I think I missed it by 6 years or so. That is really everything that I wanted to go over right now. Again, I can't stress how important I think this is. Just to sort of recap the main benefit points, right? Number one, the most important thing, let's make the internet more accessible. Let's make it more inclusive. Let's have it be that, anybody can go to your website and have a pleasant experience and, achieve whatever the end goal is there, whether it is making an appointment, ordering food, calling the doctor, whatever the case is, we want that to be able to be done. Second of all, there is a litigation aspect to it. And we want small businesses to stay protected, especially if it's something that they were just simply unaware of, and we're not acting with any malice or anything of that nature. And lastly, it's a best business practice. It's something where it makes your company look good. It provides you with SEO benefits, tax benefits, and also, if your website is part of your funnel, this is a great way to drive in more traffic, which of course equals more revenue and profits.
All great reasons. Definitely.
I love it.
Yeah. And again, at the end of the day, inclusivity makes for better business, better user experience, better business. I had a couple of questions about just, I know the AI we touched on a little bit. I believe in it. So you mentioned it fills the gaps. Can you elaborate a bit more on the specific cases where it does fill the gaps dynamically?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason that I say fill the gaps opposed to, revamp the entire site is because a lot of companies have done certain like alt tag work, for example, on their site. And that could be for SEO purposes. It could also be for um, spec to make certain images as specific as possible, right? Let's say it's a doctor's office and you want it to say our chief of surgery, Dr. Brown, opposed to, man in white lab coat or something along those lines, right? We're not going to override any of those alt tags. All we're going to do is make sure that any that are missing alt tags are having those filled in and, bringing you up to an accessible level. Additionally, one example we use on our live demos a lot, something that, you know, myself personally, I never would have considered as I've never needed to use a screen reader. But, there's Facebook buttons, and a lot of people don't think to go ahead and tag that as a button in the proper way, tag it in a way that's going to explain what's going to now happen to the end user who may be blind and using a screen reader. So, if they were to encounter that actual button that's going to take you to Facebook, where, you and I may know that that's a Facebook button. And if it takes us to a new tab, no problem, we'll find our way back. It's not quite as simple for everybody out there. And, what ideally you want it to say is something along the lines of button, Facebook, new window, right? That's providing the user with a lot of additional context to let them know, hey, this is going to, I could click on it. It's going to take me to Facebook. It's going to open in a new window. Where right now, an inaccessible website may just simply, not have anything there, and it may just skip over it completely, or just say logo, button, something along those lines without a lot of context. To Josh's point earlier, when he was talking about using keyboard shortcuts for headers, right, and being able to navigate through headers quickly, right? Sometimes people are using the same sites over and over again, or, they're trying to skip to a certain part of a website and they know where they're trying to go and they want to get there quickly without going through every single part of a website. We will be adding, proper, essentially the proper formatting and hierarchy so that we know this is a header, this is the order of the headers. And of course, if you've already done steps to do so, we're going to maintain what you've created. This is just to fill in, again, any blanks that are missing there. Does that answer your question, Carl?
It does. It does. And yeah, I've seen a demo where you showed a dynamic alt tag generation, for example, where
Yeah.
it was an image that had some text embedded in it, and it just dynamically read it and applied the alt tag, right off the bat. So that was certainly impressive to see. I think it even described the picture, right? It may have been a case where there wasn't any text in it, but just described the photo and added that dynamically as an alt tag. So definitely some impressive technology you guys have there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I want to just segue a bit to the legal aspect of it, and just mentioned one of our customers. They're actually a provider of legal education content, and it's an interesting story. While we were working on the partnership together, it took some time to go through all the contracts and all that. They actually reached out to us and asked for accessiBe to be included on their website. So it was just like the timing was impeccable. And it was just great verification and justification to form this partnership, having this thought leader of legal content that is a publisher of legal educational content reach out to us, asking us to incorporate accessiBe within their site. So it was certainly just a great justification, verification of forming this partnership. So I want to just highlight that. And I know you mentioned, we have experiences where multiple customers have received multiple demand letters over time. They may do a fix, but then, you always have to keep the content up to date and make sure you're addressing ADA compliance on a daily basis. Whenever you're publishing new content out there, there's always that checklist you need to maintain and make sure you're embedding those alt tags and all that good stuff and the meta descriptions and all that. So it's just a great tool that, again, as Landon and Josh mentioned, that helps to fill those gaps and helps prevent the legal ramifications of it. So yeah, certainly, we have launched this with a handful of customers today. We want to bring it to the masses and really offer this to all of our customers across the board. From a license standpoint, can we touch on that real quick? Just I know licensing is based on, there's different tiers, right? And then speak to the specific aspects of each of the tiers. I think it's based on page volume and traffic. Is that right?
Yeah, there's could I actually circle back to that in just one moment? I just wanted to address something you mentioned earlier, which is, clients getting maybe sued again or facing litigation again. One of the main reasons as to why people don't have accessible websites, of course, there is the ignorance level, or maybe just, it never crossed their mind, quite frankly. But the options that have been on the market up until this place have been sort of do it manually, which, if you have a large internal development team who's trained in accessibility, maybe Coca-Cola or something like that, then, you might have the resources to do that. We're usually talking about a very high price point, an ongoing, I should say it's a never ending process in that point. As well as, every time you want to add new content, you need to go back to them and have them make those changes. Where, as Josh mentioned earlier, we're scanning for new content every 24 hours, remediating that content, and it should be accessible and ready to go right after that. The other option that's been out there has been sort of like free plugins where maybe you can make the text a little bit bigger, change the font. It's maybe a step in the right direction, but it's not doing everything that really needs to be done, especially on the back end for blind users or users with any sort of motor disability. So to speak to your point regarding licensing, yes, it's based off of two major factors. Our pricing is pretty transparent on our website as well, but the pricing is based off of, number one, page count. So a great way to check how many pages your website has, if you don't have access to your sitemap or anything like that handily, is to do in a Google search, site : without a space, your URL, and just the URL, nothing at the end. The amount of results that appear, in most cases, is an accurate representation of how many pages you have. So just something to keep in mind there. Our tiers, 1 to 1,000 pages, 1,001 to 10,000 pages, 10,000 and above, so on and so forth. The other thing to keep in mind is website traffic. A great free tool out there to use is similarweb.com. You could plug in your domain and it will tell you the amount of traffic that you're receiving on a monthly basis. If you are, anywhere close to 100,000 monthly visits, I definitely recommend reaching out to the email that was on the screen a moment ago. I believe it was success@bridgeline.com, Carl?
Correct.
Right? Success@bridgeline.com. As you would qualify for our enterprise plan. Please keep in mind that all of Access Widget users are receiving our litigation support as well as our accessibility statements. It's just that for websites that are receiving that much traffic, we want to work with you and our engineers, you and our legal team. We want to, make sure that you, just because of the amount of traffic you're receiving, really have everything you need from that standpoint to get you up and running and set to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that litigation support, I don't know if we really touched on it too much, but it in addition to the Access Widget, which is the technology, there is the underlying services team for litigation support, but also I think for like offline content, requests, things of that nature, right? I know there's a team of services, different offerings that you provide there as well, right?
Absolutely. accessiBe is the company. accessWidget is the solution that Josh used in his live demonstration. We have a services team. I don't want to say it's limitations on accessWidget because it's quite frankly, nobody can do this in an automated manner. But downloadable files. So if you do have PDFs or, spreadsheets or anything of that nature on your site, I would double check using certain tools online to see if they are accessible. And if not, we do have a team that's able to bring those into compliance. I would say first and foremost, it's most important to make sure your actual site is in compliance, and then, move on to the PDFs down the line or downloadable files down the line. This also does apply to media that doesn't have closed captionings or transcripts, anything of that nature. That's also a service we're able to provide. From the legal standpoint, some of the things that we'll be providing, number one, which is our accessibility statement. This is a legal requirement. It acts as sort of a certificate of performance, basically. And it's going to explain any changes that have been made to the site, to the browser, how it's compatible with different assistive technologies, also how to report any issues if any were to be found. And these are going to be reinforced with monthly compliance audits, just making sure that you know where you stand every month in terms of accessibility and compliance, but can also be downloaded and shared as proof of ongoing efforts to maintain that compliance. That is typically, all you need to really heed off some of the litigation is you are doing the work to make your site accessible to the proper standards, make a really great user experience. If you ever were to continue being, if you ever were to continue down the path of litigation with a demand letter or lawsuit, we would open up our litigation support ticket. Again, no additional cost. It's many of our teams very involved in the process. And we look at the claim of why the site is inaccessible, check if, that claim is even correct or not, and explain in technical terms why that claim is false while we work with your legal team or your client's legal team, whatever the case may be, to help get out of that situation, quite frankly.
That's awesome. I guess the last question that I know has come up quite a bit in some of the demos we've done is just around the development effort or the implementation effort. Again, it's this is a partnership that we've established, so we've invested in the integration, making it very easy to enable accessiBe in all of our products. So it's certainly just sort of a turnkey type of approach there. There's some training and onboarding that comes into play, but I know folks often ask, like, oh, do we need to update CSS or anything like that? Typically it overlays on top of the CSS, right? So it just dynamically adjusts CSS based on common styles and all that. Right?
Yes. So everything is session based. So it's not making a big change to the website just by having it on there. It's just a little bit of code that's going to live at the bottom. It's that when you go ahead and turn on certain profiles, that's when it's going to make some changes. The implementation is pretty straightforward. We always recommend double checking, hey, is everything running smoothly, by tabbing through the site, something along those lines, turning on a couple of profiles, right? If you ever see any issues, reach out to Bridgeline, reach out to our team. We'll be happy to support you. And then also another thing to keep in mind as well, but sorry, to answer the second part of your question, no, there's not really much more that you need to do on your end besides keep an eye out. We always want people to have accessibility on their mind. It's just that we understand that not everybody is an accessibility expert and, web developer. But, when you are making changes to your site, or if you're revamping your website, please, of course, keep accessibility in your mind, build the foundation of it in an accessible way. We want to be there to, make sure to bridge any gaps and get you to that next level. But it's something that we never want to steer developers or e-commerce managers, website managers to turn away from simply because there is a solution that can make it a bit easier for them. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I know you mentioned it's session based, but it does persist from session to session, right? So like if the front end user adjusts for, they set a certain profile, when they come back to the website, it's set in that profile setting, right?
Yes. So it's not going to affect any other user, but if I turn on, a low vision mode, for example, and I were to visit that site, 5 days later on the same browser, low vision mode will still be on for me.
Cool. All right. Well, certainly, again, a great technology. Appreciate, again, the partnership here and for you guys joining us on this webinar today to bring accessiBe to the masses at Bridgeline, all of our Bridgeline customers. So again, quick takeaway, any questions at all, reach out to us directly at success@bridgeline.com. Your customer success director is well informed on our partnership here. They can have more in-depth discussions with you around any questions you may have when it comes to licensing or features, functions, even if you want to have a separate demo, more than happy to step through that with you all. So I guess any other questions, Victoria, from the audience? Or
no, and I think that's a perfect place to end it. We will be sending out a recap of this conversation that you guys had. We'll be sending that out in about a week, along with the recording of this webinar. So if anyone had to drop for any reason, they will have access to the full recording, the full conversation. And I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time this morning my time. I know it's well into the afternoon for you folks. And so we'll be ending here. But again, as Carl mentioned, reach out to this email if you have any questions about any of the topics that they covered. If you're interested in getting this going for your site, that is the best way to follow up. All right. Well, thank you guys and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. This is so awesome, and really appreciate Bridgeline for being able to advocate with us and raise awareness and to make the world more accessible. You guys are awesome, and Landon, great job today as always. And we're all in this together. We're making the world more accessible. So thank you.
That's right. Excellent.
Love it. All right.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Appreciate it, guys. Bye-bye.